Aloha, friends and family. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take up the Spake Sri Krishna. I salute that all blissful Madhava whose compassion makes the dumb eloquent and enables the lame to cross mountains. It has been said that other avatars, incarnations, were only partial manifestations of the Lord, but in Sri Krishna there was a full manifestation. He is the most popular and the most beloved of all the avatars, and there is no Hindu who does not know his name. Sri Krishna, in whose veins flowed royal blood, was born in the clan of Vrishnis as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. Devaki was the sister of King Kamsa, who was cruelty and unrighteousness personified. While he was driving the chariot in which was seated his newly married sister with her husband, he heard a voice saying, "The eighth child of this couple, O fool, will be your slayer." At once he was on the point of killing his sister, but desisted from doing so after Vasudeva, who was famous for his truthfulness, assured him that he would hand over all his children to Kamsa as soon as they were born. Just before the birth of Sri Krishna, Vasudeva and Devaki were imprisoned and were heavily shackled. The Lord, who is the deliverer and savior of the people, was born in a prison house in Mathura. The child was none but Vishnu, the Supreme Lord, born to relieve the earth of sin and unrighteousness and to show light and guidance to many a yearning soul. The guards fell asleep. Vasudeva was unshackled, and the doors were opened through his divine Maya, and the child was safely carried to Gokula on the other side of Jamuna to the house of Nanda, and was exchanged with his newborn daughter. The tyrant Kamsa, as soon as he came to learn of the birth of Devaki's child, rushed to the prison house to kill his would-be slayer with his own hand. But to his utter astonishment, he saw the child to be a girl. Yet remembering the prophecy, he caught hold of the baby and was going to kill her when she miraculously slipped from his hands and went up into the sky, saying, "He who will slay you is growing at Gokula." This made Kamsa furious, and he ordered all the babies in Mathura and in its neighborhood to be killed. And we read a similar story in the Bible where the wretched king put out a decree to kill all the babies because he was trying to stop Jesus from coming about. So apparently this kind of stuff went on quite a bit in the past, over the course of thousands of years. But he who was born to destroy sin and reestablish Dharma, or religion, and I'm going to say pure religion, which is different from all these modern day religions that are watered down, ear tickling belief systems. Let me start that over. But he who was born to destroy sin and reestablish Dharma, or pure religion, remained unscathed and subsequently baffled all Kamsa's attempt to put an end to his life. Ultimately, Kamsa, who was evil and sin personified, was killed by Krishna, and Kamsa's father, Ugrasena, was installed on the throne. Krishna's childhood was full of miracles. For ordinary people, they were so mysterious, but to the Lord it was all play. One day, Krishna, in a playful mood, ate some mud. The foster mother, Yasoda, made him open his mouth to remove the mud, and to her great astonishment, she saw the whole universe inside. As she was marveling at this wondrous sight, Krishna laughed and resumed his natural form. Krishna moved to Vrindavan, a few miles from Mathura, where his playmates were the cowherds, boys, and the girls, known as Gopas, chief among whom was Sri Radha. Radha forgot herself and her love for Krishna. To the Hindus, Radha's ardent desire typifies the passionate love of the human soul for the ineffable divine spirit. After some years, Krishna felt the call of a new mission and came to Dwaraka, a seaside city in Gujarat. He entrusted the government of the newly formed kingdom to his kinsmen, the Vrishnis. Though himself a famous warrior, a wise statesman, and intelligent diplomat, he never occupied the throne. He conquered many kingdoms, but gave them over to others. Though he was often seen in the midst of intense activity, he was always calm and unruffled. Though he was always at work, he was ever absolutely unattached. Just before the memorable battle of Kurukshetra, Arjuna, seeing his elders and kith and kin ready to fight to death, became very dejected, and being under delusion, started lamenting. To remove that unmanliness and delusion of Arjuna, Bhagavan Sri Krishna taught Arjuna in the battlefield the immortal Gita, the song celestial, the perennial source of peace and bliss. The Gita, which was later compiled by the great sage Vyasa, consists of 700 verses and 18 chapters. After installing Yudhishthira on the throne, Sri Krishna went back to Dwaraka, where after a time a civil war broke out among the members of the Vrishni clan. They fell upon one another and perished. Krishna looked on as a detached witness, seeing in all the fulfillment of destiny. Realizing that the time of his own departure was near at hand, he restrained his mind and senses in yoga and lay down on the bare earth under a tree. When a hunter, seeing his rosy feet from a distance, mistook them for a crouching deer and aimed an arrow which pierced the feet of the Lord, coming nearer, the hunter realized his grievous mistake and was sorely grief-stricken. But the Lord blessed him with a smile and soon after gave up his body. Thus, the greatest of the avatars, after fulfilling his great divine mission of eradicating sin and reestablishing pure religion, left his mortal coil. Though thousands of years have elapsed, the memory of Lord Krishna is evergreen in the hearts of millions of devotees. May he dispel all darkness and shower his benign blessings upon all. Lord Krishna is worshipped in various forms, the favorite ideal of men as well as of women, the ideal of children as well as of grown-up men. He was the most wonderful sannyasi and the most wonderful householder in one. He had the most wonderful amount of rajas, power, and was at the same time living in the midst of the most wonderful renunciation. Krishna can never be understood until you have read the Gita, for he was the embodiment of his own teaching. The glory of Sri Krishna is that he has been the best preacher of our eternal religion and the best commentator on the Vedanta that ever lived in India. In the Gita, we hear the distant sound of the conflict of sects, S-E-C-T-S. The Lord Krishna comes in the middle to harmonize them all. He, the great teacher of harmony, Lord Sri Krishna. He says, "In me they are all strung like pearls upon a thread." Blessed are the pure in heart, for unto them is given the knowledge of God. And the Bible says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God, or something very close to that. As the rising sun dispels the darkness of the night, so the knowledge of the Atman drives away all delusion. The yoga of knowledge is for those who desire nothing, for they, knowing every desire to be fraught with evil, have renounced work. Blessed is human birth, even the dwellers in heaven desire this birth, for true knowledge and pure love may be attained only by a human being. Wow. True knowledge and pure love may only be attained by a human being. Seek not for life on earth or in heaven. Thirst for life is delusion, knowing life to be transitory. Wake up from this dream of ignorance and strive to attain knowledge and freedom before death shall claim thee. And me and Tom were talking yesterday about liberation, and that we're just so we're so blissful because we've been liberated and we know it. And that's what he's talking about here. Liberation. The sacrifice through knowledge is superior to sacrifice performed with materials. O scorcher of foes, all actions in their entirety, O Partha, culminate in knowledge. Acquire that knowledge through prostration, inquiry, and service. The wise who are knowers of the truth will instruct you in wisdom. Acquiring which knowledge, O son of Pandu, you will no more be thus deluded, by which you will see all creatures in yourself and them in me. Even if you be the worst sinner amongst all sinners, you will cross all sin by the boat of knowledge alone. As a fire well kindled reduces fuel to ashes, so, O Arjuna, does the fire of knowledge reduce all karma to ashes. Verily, there exists no purifier on earth equal to knowledge. A man who becomes perfect in yoga finds it within himself in course of time. He who is full of faith and zeal and has subdued his senses attains knowledge. Having attained knowledge, he soon attains to supreme peace, which is that bliss. But the man who is ignorant and without faith and always doubting goes to ruin. Not this world, nor the world beyond, nor happiness is for the doubting soul. The omnipresent Lord does not accept the sin of virtue of anybody, the sin or virtue of anybody. Knowledge is enveloped by ignorance. Because of this, beings get deluded. But those whose ignorance has been destroyed by the knowledge of the self, their knowledge, like the sun, manifests that highest being. Fixing their minds on him, at one with him, abiding in him, realizing him alone as the supreme goal, they reach a state from which there is no return, their sins having been destroyed by knowledge. I shall tell you again the supreme knowledge, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained supreme felicity. With this knowledge they have attained to my nature, are not reborn even at the time of creation, nor are they distressed at the time of dissolution, and know the Ketrajana, or embodied self, and all the bodies to be myself, O Bharata. The knowledge of the Kestra and the Kshetrajna, which is matter and spirit, is, in my opinion, true knowledge. Just to bless them, I, residing in their intellect, destroy the darkness born of ignorance by the resplendent light of knowledge. Humility, unostentatiousness, harmlessness, forbearance, uprightness, service to the Guru, purity, steadiness, and self-control, all this is called knowledge. Dispassion for sense objects, absence of egotism, seeing misery and evil in birth, death, old age, and disease, all this is the virtues of a man of knowledge. Non-attachment and non-identification with son, wife, home, etc., always being even-minded, whether good or evil befalls, all this is called knowledge. Unwavering devotion to me through the yoga of non-separation, restoring to solitude and aversion for company, always being devoted to spiritual knowledge, perception of the aim of the knowledge of truth. All this is declared to be knowledge, and all that is contrary to this is ignorance. Learn from me in brief, O son of Kunti, how one who has reached such perfection realizes Brahman, which is the supreme consummation of knowledge. Self, Atman. But know that by which all this is pervaded to be imperishable. No one can bring about the destruction of this immutable principle. He who looks on the self as the slayer, and he who looks upon the self as slain, neither of these apprehends aright. The self slays not, nor is slain. It, or self, is never born, nor does it ever die, nor having once been does it again cease to be. Unborn, eternal, permanent, and primeval. It is not slain when the body is slain. Whom, O Partha, can that person who knows this self to be imperishable, constant, birthless, and immutable, slay or cause to be slain, and how? Just as a person casts off worn-out clothes and puts on others that are new, the embodied self casts off worn-out bodies and enters into others that are new. This self cannot be cut, nor burnt, nor wetted, nor dried, changeless, all-pervading, stable, immovable. The self is eternal. This self is said to be unmanifested, unthinkable, and unchangeable. Therefore, knowing this to be such, thou oughtest not to mourn. This, the embodied self in everyone's body, is eternally indestructible. O descent of Bharata, Arjuna, therefore you ought not to grieve for any creature. The supreme Purusha in this body is called the onlooker, the permitter, the nourisher, the protector, the great Lord, and also the supreme self. Some see the self in the self, by the self, through meditation. Others by the path of knowledge. Some others by yoga, and still others by the path of action. For seeing the Lord abiding everywhere equally, he does not injure the self by the self. Therefore, he attains the supreme goal. He who sees that actions are in every way performed only by prakriti, or nature, and likewise sees the self as the non-doer alone sees in truth. This supreme self, being without a beginning and devoid of attributes, is immutable. Though residing in the body, O son of Kunti, it neither acts nor is it attached. Just as the all-pervading akasa, ether, because of its subtlety, is not contaminated, so is the self located everywhere in the body not contaminated. Just as the one sun illumines the whole world, even so, O descendant of Bharata, does the embodied self illumine all bodies. Two birds which look alike and are friends have casually come and built their nest in a tree. One of these eats the fruit of that tree, while the other, though not eating any fruit, is stronger. That which does not partake of the fruits is wise and knows itself as well as the other, but not so the one that eats the fruits. That which is tied to ignorance is always bound, while that which is full of knowledge is eternally free. Wakefulness, dream, and profound sleep are attributes of the intellect, being due to the gunas. The self is distinct from them, since it is conclusively proved to be their witness. Last of all, meditate on the oneness of the self with God, the one blissful existence, the one I am. Signs of Sthita Prajna, a man of steady wisdom. Question: what is the description, O Kasiva Krishna, of the man of steady wisdom, absorbed in samadhi? How does the man of steady wisdom talk? How does he sit? And how does he walk? When a man, O Partha, gives up completely all the desires of the mind and himself delights in his self alone, then he is said to be a man of steady wisdom. He whose mind is not perturbed by adversity, who is free from desires for pleasures, who is devoid of attachment, fear and anger, such as a sage, is indeed said to be of steady wisdom. He who is unattached everywhere, who neither welcomes nor hates when he obtains good or evil, he has wisdom firmly fixed. When he completely withdraws the senses from their objects, as a tortoise draws in its limbs, then his wisdom is steady. The sense objects fall off from a man practicing abstinence, but not the taste for them. But even this taste of the man of steady wisdom ceases when he sees the Supreme. The turbulent senses, O son of Kunti, forcibly led astray the mind of even a wise man striving for perfection. Therefore, restraining the senses, the self-controlled yogi should sit meditating on me. Verily, his wisdom is steady, whose senses are under control. When a person thinks deeply of sense objects, he feels an attachment for them. Attachment gives rise to desire, and desire breeds anger. From anger comes delusion, which results in loss of memory. A loss of memory causes destruction of discrimination, and from the ruin of discrimination, the man perishes. The man of self-control, on the other hand, moving among sense objects with his senses under restraint and free from attachment and aversion, attains serenity of mind, or bliss. The yogi whose self is satisfied through knowledge and realization, who is steady and has the senses under control, and to whom a clod of earth, a stone, and gold are of equal value, is said to be steadfast. When serenity is attained, there comes an end to all sorrows. Verily, the wisdom of the man of serene mind soon becomes steady. He whose senses are well controlled from their objects has steady wisdom. That which is night to all beings, and that the man of self-control is wide awake, and that in which all beings are wide awake is night to the self-seeing sage. As into the ocean, brimful and still, flow the waters, even to the sage into whom enter all desires, he, and not one who is desirous of enjoyments, attains to peace. That person who lives completely free from all desires, without longing, devoid of the idea of ownership and egoism, attains to peace. Even as the embodied self attains in this body childhood, youth, and old age, so does it attain another body. The wise man does not get deluded. The sense contacts result in heat and cold, pleasure and pain. They are subject to coming and going, and are therefore transient. That wise person whom these do not afflict, who is equanimous in pleasure and pain, is fit for immortality. Read that again. That wise person whom these do not afflict, who is equanimous in pleasure and pain, is fit for immortality. He who sees the Supreme Lord abiding equally in all beings and imperishable amidst the perishable, he sees indeed. He whose mind is not attached to anything, who has subdued his heart, and who is free from all longing, he, by renunciation, attains that supreme state of freedom from action, forsaking egotism, power, annoyance, desire, anger, and superfluous things, free from the notion of mine, and tranquil. He is fit for becoming Brahman, endowed with a pure understanding, restraining the self with firmness, turning away from sense objects such as sound, and abandoning love and hatred. He is fit for becoming Brahman, dwelling in solitude, eating but little, controlling the speech, body, and mind, ever engaged in meditation and concentration, and cultivating freedom from passion. He is fit for becoming Brahman. This is the Brahmic state, O son of Paritha. Attaining it, one is no longer deluded. Being established therein, even in the hour of death, one attains final liberation in Brahman. Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion. If a meditative man constantly worships me through the path of devotion, all the desires of his heart are destroyed, for I reside in his heart. Now again, let's just make the clarity here. He's saying the worship of me, but the me he's talking about is the I am, which there is only one, in which we all are. So when he's saying the worship of me, he's basically saying the worship of the great creator, or the I am, not the avatar, not the human. Hence the practice of knowledge or dispassion is scarcely of any use to the yogi who is devoted to me and has his mind centered in me. Whatever is acquired through works, austerities, knowledge, dispassion, yoga, or charity, all through any other means of well-being, my devotee easily attains to it all through devotion to me. Even heaven, or liberation, or my abode, should he care to have it. Basically, heaven on earth, do you care to have it? The man who has no desires and cares for nothing attains devotion to me. Merits and defects arising from the performance of acts do not affect those saints who are exclusively devoted to me, always praising me, striving with austere vows and bowing down with devotion, always steadfast. These persons who think of nothing else and worship me through meditation, again, the great I am, or the great creator or source, the accession to and the maintenance of the welfare of such ever devout persons I look after. Even these devotees who, endowed with faith, worship other gods, worship me alone, O son of Kunti, though in an unauthorized way. By devotion he knows me truly, how much and what I am. Then, having known me truly, he forthwith enters into me. Many are the means described for the attainment of the highest good, such as love, performance of duty, self-control, truthfulness, sacrifices, gifts, austerity, charity, vows, observance of moral precepts, etc. But of all I could name, verily love is the highest. Love and devotion that make one forgetful of everything else. Love that unites the lover with me. What ineffable joy does one find through love of me? The blissful self, there we go. Once that joy is realized, all earthly pleasures fade into nothingness. As fire kindled into a blaze burns the faggots to ashes. Sorry, it's what it says. I think he's meaning cigarettes. So, O Udhava, devotion to me completely consumes all evil. I, the self, dear to the devotees, am attainable by love and devotion. Devotion to me purifies even the lowliest of the low. Let not thy mind run after the things of this world, for they are empty as dreams. Give thy mind to me, devote thyself to me, meditate on me. O Udhava, neither yoga, nor knowledge, nor piety, nor study, nor austerity, nor renunciation captivates me so much as a heightened devotion to me. I, the dear self of the pious, am attainable by devotion alone, which is the outcome of faith. The devotion to me purges even outcasts of their congenital impurity. A devotee of mine whose speech is broken by sobs, whose heart melts, and who, without any idea of shame, sometimes weeps profusely, or laughs, or sings aloud, or dances, purifies the whole universe. As gold smelted by fire gives up its dross and gets back its real state, so the mind, by means of systematic devotion to me, winnows off its desire for work and attains to me. The desire for work or works, plural. The mind of man who thinks of sense objects is attached to them, but the mind of one who remembers me is merged in me alone. Therefore, giving up dwelling on unreal things, which are no better than dreams or fancies, concentrate on me. The mind clarified by devotion. Arjuna said, "These devotees who ever steadfast worship you after this fashion, and those others who worship the imperishable and unmanifest, which of these have greater knowledge of yoga?" The Lord said, "Those who worship me, fixing their mind on me, ever devoted and endowed with supreme faith, them I regard as the best of yogins. Those who, renouncing all actions in me and being attracted to me, worship me with unwavering devotion through meditation, these people who have fixed their mind on me, I quickly redeem from this ocean of transmigratory existence beset with death. Non-envious, friendly and compassionate towards all beings, free from ideas of passion and ego consciousness, which is also duality consciousness, sympathetic in pain and pleasure, forgiving, always contented, contemplative, self-controlled, of firm conviction, with his mind and intellect dedicated to me. Such a devotee of mine is dear to me. He by whom the world is not afflicted, and whom the world cannot afflict, he who is free from joy and anger, fear and anxiety, he is dear to me. He who is free from dependence, who is pure and prompt, unconcerned and untroubled, and who has renounced all undertakings, dear to me is the man who is thus devoted to me. He who rejoices not and hates not, who grieves not and desires not, who has renounced both good and evil, and is full of devotion, he is dear to me. And we've talked in past videos about the very thing of good and evil being, a sliding scale that we call things good and evil, but there really is no good and evil. That's what he's meaning by renouncing both good and evil. It just means to realize that there really is no good and evil. There's just a sliding scale, and the things on that scale to a particular human person is going to be deemed good or evil, and there's no way to tell where that starts and stops. He who is alike to foe and friend, unaltered in honor and dishonor, who is the same in cold and heat, in pleasure and pain, and who is free from attachment, that man is dear to me. He who is unchanged by praise or blame, who is silent, content with whatever he has, homeless, firm in mind, and full of devotion, that man is dear to me. Extremely dear to me are they who regard me as the supreme goal, and endowed with faith and devotion, follow this nectar-like religion, or pure religion, before it got distorted and watered down. Self-surrender, resigning mentally all actions to me, regarding me as the supreme goal, and resorting to yoga through the intellect. Ever fix your mind on me. Fixing your mind on me, you will overcome all difficulties through my grace. But if from self-conceit you do not listen to me, you will perish. In the heart of all beings, O Arjuna, resides the Lord, and by his Maya causes them to revolve as if they were mounted on a machine. Therefore take refuge in him with all your heart, O descendant of Bharata. By his grace you will attain the supreme peace and everlasting abode. Whatever thou dost, whatever thou eatest, whatever thou offerest in sacrifice, whatever thou givest away, whatever austerity thou practice, O son of Kunti, do that as an offering unto me. Whoever with devotion offers me a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, that I accept, the devout gift of the pure-minded. This divine illusion of me, constituted of the gunas, is indeed hard to surmount. Those who take refuge in me alone get over this illusion. If even a very wicked man worships me with devotion to none else, he should be regarded as good, for he has rightly resolved. Soon does he become righteous and attain eternal peace. O son of Kunti, boldly proclaim thou that my devotee is never destroyed. For taking refuge in me, they also, O son of Pritha, who might be of inferior birth, women, Vaisyas, as well as Sudras, even they attain to the supreme goal. Fill thy mind with me, be my devotee, sacrifice unto me, bow down to me, thus having made thy heart steadfast in me, taking me as the supreme goal, thou shalt come to me. And again, the me is the I am, or the higher self, your very spirit. So you could think of, when you're listening to this, think of your higher self is saying all of this to your man, to your avatar, to your human. Because your spirit and your human must become one. So think of all of this being said to yourself from yourself, or to your human's mind from your spirit's cosmic consciousness. I am the origin of all. From me everything evolves. Thus thinking, the wise worship me with loving consciousness. With their minds wholly in me, with their senses absorbed in me, enlightening one another, and always speaking of me, they are satisfied and delighted. Only by single-minded devotion I may in this form be known, O Arjuna, and seen in reality, and also entered into. He who does my work and looks on me as the supreme goal, who is devoted to me, who is without attachment and without hatred for any creature, he comes to me, O Pandava. At the end of innumerable births, the man of realization takes refuge in me, knowing that all this is Vasudeva. Such a saint is exceedingly rare. Therefore remember me at all times and fight with your mind and intellect devoted to me. You shall attain me alone, there is no doubt about this. When a man relinquishes all work, surrenders himself to me, it is then that I like to magnify him most. Attaining immortality, he is then fit for oneness with me. Let all thy work be done as service unto me. With thine every word extol my divine attributes. Free thy mind from all selfish desires and offer it unto me. Renounce all enjoyments and pleasures, make sacrifices, offer gifts, chant my name, undertake vows, and practice austerities. Do all these things for my sake alone. Thus, by surrendering thyself to me through all your actions and remembering me constantly, thou shalt come to love me. When thou shalt come to love me, there will be nothing for thee to achieve. Fix your mind on me, be devoted. Then you shall come to me. Truly do I promise you, for you are dear to me. Giving up all duties, take refuge in me alone. I will liberate you from all sins. Do not grieve. Jnana Yoga, the way of meditation. Uddhava asked, O lotus-eyed Krishna, please tell me how and in what aspect a seeker after liberation should meditate upon thee. Krishna replied, in a clean spot, fixing his seat firm, neither too high nor too low, made of kusa grass, deerskin, and cloth, one on top of the other, he should practice meditation. He should sit firm, holding his body, neck, and head erect and still, and gaze steadily at the tip of the nose without looking around. One should purify the passage of prana by means of inhalation, retention, and exhalation of the breath, and should also practice slowly in the inverse order with the senses under control. Raising the syllable om to the heart by means of pranayama, one should add to it the vowel. The om is like the continuous peal of a bell and extending in a thin line like a thread in a lotus stalk. Thus one should practice the pranayama coupled with om 10 times thrice daily. Then within a month one will control the prana. If the mind wanders restlessly while one is practicing meditation, one should take still firmer hold on it and patiently try to control its vagaries. The control of the mind is said to be the highest yoga. It is like the control of an unruly horse which must be made to obey its rider. If the yogi, being deluded, makes mistakes in life, he should burn away his sins and impurities by prayer and meditation. This yoga of prayer and meditation is the only way of atonement. Completely serene and fearless, steadfast in the vow of a brahmachari, practicing continuance, and ever thinking on me, you should sit in yoga, regarding me as the supreme goal. Thus constantly concentrating the mind, the yogi with his mind controlled attains the peace culminating in final beatitude in the form of abiding in me. Yoga is not for him who eats too much, nor for him who eats too little. It is not for him, O Arjuna, who sleeps too much, nor for him who sleeps too little. For him who is temperate in food, and recreation, temperate in his exertion at work, temperate in sleep and waking. Yoga puts an end to all sorrows. When the mind, well controlled, remains fixed in the self alone, and one is free from craving for all enjoyments, then one is said to have attained yoga. Even as a lamp in the windless place does not flicker, that is, the smile for a yogi of controlled mind practicing concentration on the self, that on gaining which one thinks there is no greater gain, and wherein established one is not moved by the heaviest of sorrows. Let that be known as the state called yoga, a state of severance from the contact of pain. This yoga should be practiced with perseverance, undisturbed by depression of heart. Having completely renounced all desires born of fancy, and completely restraining by the mind alone the whole group of senses from their respective objects in all directions, yoga should be practiced. Wheresoever the restless and unsteady mind wanders, from that very object it should be restrained and brought under the control of the self alone. Supreme bliss comes to the yogi whose mind is completely tranquil and whose passions are quieted, who is free from strain, and who has identified himself with Brahman. Arjuna said, "This yoga which you, O Madhusadana, have described as evenness, I do not see how it can long endure because of the restlessness of the mind. For the mind, O Krishna, is restless, turbulent, powerful, and obstinate. To control it is as hard, it seems to me, as to control the wind." The Lord said, "Doubtless, O mighty Arjuna, the mind is restless and hard to control, but by practice and by detachment, O son of Kunti, it can be restrained. Yoga is hard to attain, I think, for a man who cannot control himself, but it can be attained by him who has controlled himself and who strives by right means. A yogi, striving diligently, is purified of all sins, and becoming perfect through many births, reaches the supreme goal. And of all yogis, even he who, possessed of faith, worships me with his mind absorbed in me, is, in my opinion, the greatest." Arjuna said, "Though possessed of Shraddha, but unable to control himself, with the mind wandering away from yoga, what end does one, failing to get perfection in yoga, meet, O Krishna? Does he not, fallen from both, perish without a support, deluded in the path of Brahman?" The blessed Lord said, "Verily, O son of Prithna, there is no destruction for him, either here or hereafter. For the doer of good, O my son, never comes to grief. Having attained to the worlds of the righteous, and dwelling there for unnumbered years, he is reborn in the house of the pure and prosperous. Or else he is born in the family of the wise yogis only. Verily, birth such as that is very rare to obtain in this world. There he strives more than before for perfection. By that former practice alone, he is led on in spite of himself. The yogi is greater than men of austerities, greater than men of knowledge, greater than men of action. Therefore, be a yogi, O Arjuna. Karma Yoga, the path of action. Endowed with wisdom, giving up the fruits resulting from actions, attaining self-realization, and freed from the bondage of birth, verily, they go to that abode which is free from evil. Established in yoga, O Arjuna, perform actions giving up attachment and unconcerned as to the success or failure. Far inferior is work prompted by desire to work done through wisdom. O Arjuna, take refuge in wisdom. Those who are impelled by results of action are miserable. Yoga is the skill in work, so take to yoga. To work alone you have the right, but never claim its results. Let not the results of actions be your motive, nor be attached to inaction. Question: if you hold, O Janardana, Krishna, that knowledge is superior to action, why then do thou engage me in this terrible action? Kindly tell me definitely that one thing by which I shall reach the highest goal. Even of your, Y-O-R-E, O sinless one, a twofold devotion was taught by me to the world. Devotion to knowledge for the contemplative, and devotion to work for the active. Not by mere abstaining from actions does a man reach the state of actionlessness, nor by mere renunciation does he arrive at perfection. Verily, no one can remain even for an instant without doing work, for, driven by the gunas born of prakriti or nature, everyone is made to act in spite of himself. The person who restrains his organs of action but continues to dwell in his mind on the objects of the senses deludes himself and is called a hypocrite. But he, O Arjuna, who controlling the organs by the mind performs karma yoga with the organs of action, being unattached, he excels. Perform the prescribed duties, for action is superior to inaction. Moreover, if you are inactive, even the maintenance of your body will be impossible. The world becomes bound by action unless it be done for the sake of sacrifice. Therefore, O son of Kunti, give up attachment and do your work for the sake of the Lord. Know that action originates from Brahma, the Vedas, and Brahman from the imperishable. But that person who delights only in the self, is satisfied with the self, is contented in the self alone, verily has no duties to perform. I have no duty to perform, O Parthana, nor is there anything in three worlds unattained, neither there is anything to be attained. Still I am engaged in action. If ever I cease to be vigilantly engaged in action, O Partha, people would follow my footsteps in every way, because whatever a great man does, others also copy. Whatever he sets up as a standard, that the world follows. If I cease doing work, these worlds would be ruined, and I would be causing an admixture of castes and destroying these beings. Therefore, always perform action which has to be unattached. Verily, man attains the highest by performing action unattached. By action alone, King Janaka and others realized perfection. Even with a view to guiding men, you should perform action. As the ignorant perform action, being attached to it, even so, O descendant of Bharata, should the wise perform action unattached, desiring the welfare of the world. The wise man should not unsettle the fate of the ignorant who are attached to work. He should make them devoted to all work, performing action himself intently. Actions are done in all cases by the gunas of Prakriti, but he whose mind is deluded with egotism thinks, I am the doer. Better is one's own duty imperfectly performed than the duty of another well performed. Better is death in doing of one's own dharma or duty. The dharma of another is fraught with fear. Work becomes consecrated and purifying when it is done as service unto me. He who performs actions dedicating them to the Lord and giving up attachment is not touched by sin as a lotus leaf by water. He who is devoted to selfless action and is pure in mind, whose body and senses are under control, and whose self has become the self of all, is not touched even though he may be performing work. The man of selfless action, who knows the truth, thinks, I am not doing anything. Renunciation and the performance of selfless action both lead to the highest good. But of the two, the performance of selfless action is superior to the renunciation of action. It is the children and not the wise that speak of the path of knowledge, and the path of action is as different. Practicing thoroughly even one, a person attains to the fruit of both. The same state as reached by men of knowledge is also reached by men of selfless action. He who sees that the way of knowledge and the way of action are one, he truly sees. But the renunciation of action, O mighty armed one, is difficult to attain without performance of selfless action. The sage, purified by devotion to action, quickly reaches Brahman. Even performing all works always, taking refuge in me, he attains through my grace the eternal and immutable state. He whose actions are free from the hankering for desires, whose actions have been burnt by the fire of knowledge, him the wise call a sage, contented with what chance brings, transcending the pairs of opposites or duality, free from jealousy, and unperturbed in success and failure. He is not bound, though performing actions. He who is devoid of attachment, free, whose mind is established in knowledge and who does work as sacrifice as unto the Lord, his entire action melts away. Verily, no one becomes a yogi without renouncing desire for the fruit of action. And we will leave it there for today, my beautiful friends and family. Be blessed until next time.